Many thanks to Close Vanilla Servers, Husk RP, Fatal Attraction Squad, CF Tools Cloud, Sovereign RP Server, the Stronger Community, the Karma Crew Servers, Friendly DayZ Podcast, DayZ Servers, and DayZ Servers hosts for making this video possible. The latest DayZ update has changed loot more than any other patch I can remember, so I'm going to be looking at every single loot change this patch, how to gear up efficiently now, and go over the loot that is now broken as a result of these changes. Starting with the new SCR, it's spawning at helis and convoys, as well as this Chernarus supply crate here, both sides of the airfield. This is the best place to get this. It should spawn at the Livonia Bunker 2 on this crate on floor 3, but it is currently bugged and it won't spawn here yet. Inside Desert Clothing, you can get the tan version of the mag, with Livonia spawning the tan and the black version of the mag inside Desert Clothing, where Sakau spawns all SCR related loot inside dynamic containers and only has the black version. The AK-101 is a lot easier to find on Chernarus, moved from dynamic events to military tier 3+, so this is a great gun that you can get in military tier 3, but finding attachments for the 101 is going to be much harder, such as a magazine being 3 times harder to find inside the weapon when it spawns, but being compensated by the mag spawning 3 times more often in its own spawn point. No such compensation exists for the AKM though, reduced attachment chances all around, with only one drum mag being found on the map at once now, but spawning in tier 4 instead of dynamic events like last patch. Somehow it's still found at supply crates, but now that it spawns at Tizzy is the best place to get it. The AKM also has a chance to spawn with the AK suppressor attached to it, having the same spawn chance as it did last patch of 5%, but on Livonia that chance has been halved from 10 to 5. One of the biggest changes on Chernarus is that the AK-74 has been, for whatever reason, moved to dynamic events, so this is now rarer than the SCR rifle, and attachment chances are a lot lower as you can see from these numbers. Switching places with the 74 is the M16, same nerfed mag chances, and Livonia has less M16s too. Inversely, the AUG AX is easier to find, now spawning in the fixed spawn points of the prison room at Dambog, so floor 2 you can easily get an AUG AX, with the mag also spawning in more locations too, and then when you couple that with the fact that the smaller AUG is a lot easier to get, as you can see from this, the AUGs of this patch will certainly be a lot easier to get compared to last patch. The same goes for the SVD on Chernarus, only 1 spawned at gas zones last patch, now 4 spawn at helis and convoys, with its mag also being found in these locations, plus supply crates too, so the SVD is about as rare as the AK-74 now. The most powerful weapon in the game is easier to find than these two though. DMRs are tier 4 military on Chernarus, shown to be spawning here, but finding a magazine is going to be a lot harder, especially because so many attachments were pushed up to tier 3 and 4, now creating a lot of competition at weapon related spawn points, so a lot of different weapons are going to be fighting for the same spawn point, which means you're less likely to find the weapon that you want. The devs probably noticed this, pushing the Vakir down a tier to make way for the AS-Val, which is back on Chernarus. It wasn't on Chernarus last patch, and is about as rare as a DMR now, just with easier to find magazines. And speaking of magazines, the Lamas had a 75% chance to spawn with a magazine inside of it last patch, and it's now been giga-nerfed to just 10%. More magazines for the Lamas do spawn, and more Lamases do spawn as well, so this might balance it out, but it's going to be very rare that you find a mag inside of this weapon now. The Vega drum is now spawning in lower tiers, maybe to make way for other stuff spawning in the higher tiers, because all of its mags also spawn less, and I believe this lack of available weapon related spawn points is why the AK-74 was moved to dynamic events. There's simply not enough spawn points for the AK-74 to be in military areas, and this could also be the reason for the SKS being moved out of military areas to dynamic events, which on its own is a very strange choice for loot progression and lore reasons, but in the context of freeing up more high tier loot spawns, it starts to make a little bit of sense. High-powered rifles didn't avoid the loot nerfs. My boy, the Blaze, got sent to tier 3 plus hunting, with less of them spawning too, as you can see, making Livonia the best map to get one, which is also the case for the Mosin. On Chernarus, these will be seen a lot less. It still spawns in residential areas, but it is no longer found in hunting locations, and it got a heavy nerf from 40 of them spawning across the map to just 17 of them. Same again for the 527 and the repeater, far less will spawn, but in this case, these two weapons were moved to farm locations only, resulting in a lot of red dots. As you can see here, a red dot represents where it used to spawn but no longer does. This also happened to the double barrel shotgun, you can see, and all shotguns are going to be harder to find really, and they're going to spawn in higher tiers, so no more fresh spawn wielding shotguns I'm afraid, SMGs got the same treatment, basically pushed to higher tiers all around, with the Scorpion and the Rack only being found at police situations. Same again for pistols, but the CR75 has been done dirty, as you can see here. It spawns with less attachments, and this is all pistols, less attachments, and mag chances for all pistols is now 25%. It used to be 70% for the CR75, so finding a magazine with a pistol in tier 1, 2, 3 is going to be quite hard, but the Longhorn does spawn in Livonia again in hunting tier 1 and 2. As for the other weapon changes you should be aware of, the LAR, M4 and VS89 spawn less with attachments like optics, magazines, buttstock, stuff like that. The 10, 20 and 30 round C-mags are going to be easier to find though, but the M79 no longer spawns at trains on Chernarus, but it still does on Livonia. All attachment and mag chance reductions you've seen on Chernarus this patch have also been applied to Livonia. There are some slight differences, but Sakau barely saw any changes at all to attachments and magazine chances, making Sakau even better for loot. Vest armor has seen the biggest changes of all clothing and armor, with the plate carrier vest variants, including the new desert one here, all spawning at helis and convoys on Chernarus instead, so no more camo variant at military bases, and this means that one extra plate can be found per map. On Livonia, heavy infected now have a 30% chance to spawn with the plate carrier, so much less than last patch which was guaranteed, but heavies still have a guaranteed chance on Livonia to get a helmet attached to them, where on Chernarus a heavy with a helmet is now 30% chance. On both maps, the same has happened to heavy police infected, so 30% chance for them to spawn with a stab vest instead. It used to be a 100% chance, so finding a stab vest in lower tiers is going to be a lot harder. Also on Chernarus, they reduced the amount of stab vests from 20 to 12, so 40% less, and they moved them to police locations of tier 3 or higher. So because there's so few spawn points up here, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to walk into a police station up here and get yourself a stab vest. But this reduction did not happen on Livonia. It's a lot easier to find there, and that's also the case for the ballistic vest. On Chernarus, the two variants of ballistic vest have what I believe to be bugged spawns. They were moved to police situations this patch, but only spawn at the ones that have buses for whatever reason. So these four here, because there's so many potential police situation locations, this means that the press vest is oftentimes not even on Chernarus at all. There's also a bug with the new T65 helmet. It should spawn at dynamic containers on Sakau, but does not, and doesn't spawn on Livonia by design, so Chernarus is the only location to get the T65, but it should spawn on Sakau in the future. Chernarus is now the place to get the Field Backpack 2, Tier 3 and 4 military, and ghillie pieces on Chernarus no longer spawn apart from the hood, which have been moved to military areas, but on Livonia all ghillie pieces are now military. They used to be at convoys and helis on Chernarus and Livonia, now they've been moved to military areas on Livonia only, so it's better to get ghillied on this map. It's also better to get NBC gear on this map too, because the hood and the jacket, I'm not sure if this is a bug, but they spawn in all military locations, unlike the other pieces that are heli and convoy only, which were moved from Downbog last patch. A similar change happened on Chernarus. Instead of tier 4 military, grey NBC gear has moved to dynamic events, so Livonia is going to be the map for NBC, including the combat gas mask too, because it was moved to helis and convoys on Chernarus. Lower tiers won't spawn as many weapons, and all weapons will most likely require you to hunt down the magazine, optic and attachments for it in order to get it fully operational. This change isn't going to be as noticeable on Livonia, and basically nothing at all has changed on Sakau. You won't notice a difference, but on Chernarus I believe you will, because if you want an okay chance of getting a gun with ammo, you will need to search the west of the map. You can get lucky on the east side, but the west side is going to be the place, especially Tizzy and Northwest Airfield. They're the most rewarding locations this patch. This is also the case for vest armor, but for all other loot such as food, most clothing and tools, it's all pretty much the same, so only really weapons and armor were nerfed, taking us from a weapon quality loot progression cycle like this to now this. To help you adapt, the loot finders are now fully up to date, including which loot is bugged, as you can see, but if you want to speed up that adaptation, I would recommend the best feature that I've ever added to the map tool for loot. I call it the loot tracker, where you basically create a list of loot that you want to find and it adds the spawn points to the map for you. You can then have up to 30 items displaying on the map at once, and when you find the loot in the game, you can then remove that from your list and it will remove the spawn points, allowing you to focus on the remaining locations where you want to look for loot. It is members only, but I do have some awesome free tools on the way to make you fall in love with me again. Now, even though asking the devs to revert these changes might not make a difference, let the devs know your opinion on the loot changes in this patch. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.